Welcome, one and all, to Various Fields. I'm Lex.
I'm Hazen Fields II.
And I'm Trey. How y'all doing today?
Guys, I want to let people in on a little secret.
Okay, what's that?
I have always had a phrase that I tell people called seek out to reach out, and my friends have no idea what it means. But the thing is, you guys do.
That's correct.
That is true.
I believe there were actually one of the few fields codes that we used to live by based on how our father raised us, right? That, along with in some episodes, we kind of reached out a couple of other ones like live by the clock, die by the clock, right? But this one was the one that kind of like hit home for us for the most.
Well, I remember this one specifically for a long time. You did you might have to remember the whole thing, but for a while, before we went to bed, like for every day, it was seek out to reach out, reach out to seek out. I think live by the clock, die by the clock was like a whole list of things.
Yeah, it was a whole
and seek out to reach out is a lot. Maybe I think because it rhymed and stuff. But before I get into it, do you want to explain what seek out to reach out to seek out means?
Well, I will. And I have to say, you guys have really adopted it into your spirit. Because you guys seem to, based upon your friendships that you developed, it seems to play through. So seek out to reach out is really basically saying when you get an opportunity to find a way to be helpful to someone in your community, do it. You know, if there is a way for you to apply some kind of help. Now, doesn't necessarily mean to put yourself in harm's way or put yourself in a position where you're gonna you hurt yourself anyway to help somebody. But if you have an opportunity to help somebody, do it. You know, it's always good.
I think that's the thing that really developed into. I make it this going to sound bad now, but developed my superhero complex, which is it's the thing I try to balance. But I do have a desire to try to help people. I mean, it's different when you're older, you know,
Right?
Because like you can't always be there for everybody, which is an interesting balance, which I guess I'll try to talk to you guys about at some point. But I think, I mean, obviously I still have the Nightwing thing there. We already established how much I like superheroes, and I think that was really something that was helpful because I always liked the idea. And it's interesting also being the younger in the family, having an older brother, because then I always felt like I'm kind of tasked to be a helper a different way. Because the way it usually went down is like, you know, you're the dad, so you're the commander of leadership, you do that type of stuff. Maybe you guys leave or you mom leave or something, so now Trey's in charge. And when Trey's in charge, outside of me being annoying, I do try to sometimes support or help, but I can never like take lead, you know, at a certain age. But then you adopt that, so now I'm very much, as people who in D&D would know or different video games would know, like I'm a support class. So now I'm like, what you do is I'm supporting people who are like, where are you trying to go? What are you trying to do? And I won't lead or take charge or like push you towards anything. But I'm like, if you tell me how you want to do it, I will be right there with you.
See, that's very interesting that you took it up that way because as the older brother, I always took it as, you know, most leaders lead by example, and if anything, using your altruistic principle of seek out to reach out, maybe that would be an example placed upon others to kind of like do the same.
Right.
You know, so it's like, you know, there are a lot of great people out there that try themselves to put themselves in front of what the problem or situation. If you are in a position to be able to do better for others, you would take it upon yourself as a responsibility to help out however you can, right? And then people will follow in pursuit of that and help you pursue that goal,
Right.
or anything like that, right? But yes, it was for the sake of support, right? But it was also for the sake of saying like, hey, this is how it ought to be, I feel. You know,
Well, you're right. Well, the idea, anything that you do good, the idea is we hope that it becomes infectious to not just you, but in your community. You know, there's always going to be, you know, situations where you can't help.
Right.
You know, and I don't want anyone to ever go into any financial strain to try to help out. That's
it's not quite altruism when you like forsake yourself in like position of helping another person.
right.
Which I had to learn, by the way. I feel like there's definitely times where I've overextended myself on the concept or the principle, because then it started becoming like a judgment thing of like, if I can't help this person, who can I help? And I started I mentioned it because it's one of those things where you can sometimes get over involved and you do stop helping because then it becomes more prideful.
Right.
You're like, oh no, now you're pushing your way into something that you don't need to push yourself into.
Right. I think what happens is when you have an opportunity to open the door or usher someone in, that into something, it sets you up in a position of putting yourself in a place to be at the door or through the door. So in other words, you can't open a door for somebody else unless you get to the door yourself.
Indeed.
So in other words, if I'm able to reach out to you, I'm reaching out from a position that I've placed myself so that I can be of service. So it's a dual thing. It betters you. It puts you in a better position because you're trying to be in a position so that you can be helpful to others. So so it's always a growing thing, and hopefully people in the community. I hope we're this is Various Fields. I'm sorry to break in.
Like, share, subscribe.
Hit all the buttons, and and if you're out there, sometimes we figure out, well, what do you mean, reach out? Well, there's so many different ways. It doesn't necessarily mean that you contribute financially to harm yourself, but if you can do a little bit of that, yeah. But if you can, honestly, I'm going to give you one small thing. I'm going to give everybody that's watching on Various Fields one thing that I've committed myself to do. So very small. When you go to a shopping mall or something, shopping mall, am I saying that right? You go someplace like Walmart or whatever.
That's not a shopping mall.
Yeah.
Well, I don't
Store.
know.
When you go to a store.
When you go to a store where you need a shopping cart,
Gotcha.
you can get a shopping cart, and you go to your car.
Okay.
Make it your purpose to take that cart, to put it either in one of those contraptions to hold the cart, or take it back all the way to the place where you originally got it from. And make sure that you always do it. That's one, make it become infectious in your head that I am going to do that. One little act of kindness, courtesy, civic duty.
At the very least, don't leave it in a parking lot.
Don't
leave it in a parking space.
Right.
Leave the place better than you found it kind of situation.
Yeah.
That's
those
right.
things
And that's a small thing that you can do to put on yourself.
So let's throw it. For the community, and I want everyone to comment. What are small ways you think you can help? And when I'm talking small, I'm talking small, like a drop in a bucket kind of thing, but just small things. Since you mentioned one, what's one thing you think, whether society or a friend, but just a small thing?
I know that this is kind of controversial sometimes, but
people.
That's
Knock
people.
some sense into you.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
Sorry.
But I do feel as if always tipping, no matter where you're at, you're right,
that.
is always good.
That's interesting.
Right? Because mind you, I understand there's some people that say you shouldn't tip at certain restaurants, right? But at the very least, to say thank you very much for the service, right? Or at least help another person's day out, because you never know what that extra $20 might do to an individual, right?
This is talking about the controversial part. I do try to tip everywhere I go, but I think I also like to know if it's going to the person or not, because I do know if sometimes you have the tip thing at McDonald's now, and that just goes to the corporate. Because I forget it doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh, really? You can tip at McDonald's?
You can tip at McDonald's now.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Which
that.
is a wild thing. Which is weird because now I think it's just an extra way, but it doesn't always go to the person. It gets spread to the company. They might get extra more, but so you have to be careful. Certain places or other chain restaurant kind of things will do it now, but it doesn't always.
right? Okay.
Certain restaurants, it goes straight to the host or hostess or person that's serving you or whatever. And other people, sometimes it gets distributed in another way where they might see it in check, but it's more like it just goes to the company first.
Right. I mean, I'm used to circumstances and environments where most tips are shared within waiting staff.
Yeah, if that's
You know what I
that's
mean?
going to happen,
and
I
that's
would
what
love
I'm.
it to.
That's when I tip them. That's when I often tip.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
I understand.
Absolutely.
I've seen conglomerates say oh yeah, you could tip, and they might even add gratuity fees in your end your end growth.
Yeah.
But normally whenever I get a chance to say oh yeah, here's a tip to the waiter in particular, I often slide them a 20 or whatever they might need for that, But it's just I never know you could tip McDonald's.
Yeah. What about yourself? Do you have?
I think it's something I find myself doing that I guess it's more of a demeanor than just I'm always actively doing this one thing. I do always try to stay open to talk to people, and not everybody. But also if they're if there is someone where I can talk with a friend or a family member or maybe someone who's a slight stranger, but just enough where it's like I can kind of be down to earth enough to talk to someone about something.
Right.
Or this is the same thing as also just giving someone a smile, saying hi, just being kind of generally polite to most people. Or if you find yourself in something that feels confrontational, and you know you can what's the word, de-escalate. You know, add a little bit of levity, add a little bit of humor, things like that. You know. I'm not sure if it's much of a help, but it is like putting quote unquote good energy out there.
Yeah, I mean, and those are small things we can, as a society, if we try to do those courtesies and graciousness, we can make ourselves better. Another thing I'm just thinking of now, it's hearing the other person out.
Yes.
If you're in a conversation, we have such a knee-jerk reaction, and I'm not, and trust me when I'm saying what I'm saying, I need a mirror in front of me because I don't do this all the time, but when someone is in like a debate or you're talking about a topic, we're so trained to jump in. And like no wait no hold on and it's it's not so much that you want to have a discussion or a dialogue. You want to get your point across more so than listening to the other side. And so, be kind and listen, because you might find out something, that is going to be helpful to you.
Yeah.
So that
Before I do, sorry, I know I did it that way. News helped me out a lot with that. Because you're forced really to step back and listen because you're behind camera or things like that. So that helped me out a lot, and it has honestly been it's been very helpful for how I approach people now in conversations. Where not only do you listen to them first, and a lot of times I'll ask, even for like quote unquote small talk, I try to make sure I ask a good amount of questions about that person first, their perspective first, before I even mention anything about me or my perspective first, just so they at least feel comfortable in the conversation, and then you get more of it, because the first thing that you do is like, a lot of times if you do listen to someone, even if you're not being rude, your brain does come up with a response first, because that's kind of how conversation goes. But then you can kind of end up talking either about the wrong thing or not necessarily listening, or just you're not listening to them as much as your only thing, especially in like debates or something.
Right.
But really allowing the person to listen, really listening to the person, but also putting yourself in that person's shoes, think where they're coming from. That's been very helpful, and news just puts a very specific point of perspective on it.
I don't have much else other than that, because like I think listening in itself just becomes very, very key in a lot of the conversations.
Yeah.
A lot of people just need a shoulder to cry on. It might just be good just to hear them out all in all. Like I know I come in with a lot of times when I'm hearing people cry about whatever that might be ailing them.
Cry it out.
Right? No, I mean like
I know what
however
you
it might be. But like in terms of like I'm so used to trying to fix the situation.
Right.
Right.
As opposed to just hearing out and what they might even have a solution already, but they might just need something to vent or grief to, So I normally I normally try my best to, like, depending on the situation, just take a step back, hear them out, wait for them to say their piece, and then if they want to hear, like, because it's not just seek out to reach out and just like, oh, here, let me put myself in the situation.
Right.
It's more of a, how can I benefit the situation to the best of my ability and what is needed, right? Because sometimes the help is not entirely needed by us. Like it's not our actions that define help. It might just be someone, just like you said, just lean on.
But one thing I find that we have to, really think about, because as I'm saying this, I'm recognizing, if we're going to be truthful, we have to be the first partakers of that fruit. When we're in our homes, sometimes we have a tendency to be more better listeners to people on the outside than in our own homes, in our friendship, our small circles. So remember, and this is for me too, like, be as compassionate, be as listening in your home to those people who are the closest to you. Sometimes you can overlook that because they talk about, familiarity can sometimes breed contempt. So what happens is, when you're familiar with someone, you become so comfortable with people, you can sometimes, take for granted or, disregard or just assume that the words that you said last year still take from, at this moment. So we have to be mindful of that, and try our best, because sometimes I fail at that too. You think you're listening and you're really just responding. And because you hear things, so it's a lesson for all of us to take it home. Our loved ones, our spouses, our brothers, our sisters, whoever is the closest, aunts, uncles, grandma, especially people who get older. I work at a job where I'm blessed to be able to do some activities like Meals on Wheels. Let me see some other programs that there's another one called Squash Hunger. So we get a chance to interact with people who are elderly. And man, I'm going to tell you something. Those who are, if you have family members who are elderly and basically by themselves, you can't imagine what just a word of hello and how are you doing means to them. And sometimes we can forget, because oftentimes our family members will put themselves in a position where they seem like they're very self-sufficient. And, but when we go to those doors, Meals on Wheels and stuff, and shout out to the Meals on Wheels people, thank you for being in that place, as well as Squash Hunger. When you go to the door and you see someone who is elderly and you say, good morning, Meals on Wheels, and you hand them the food, their faces light up, not so much by the food, but by the contact. Just having some sort of interaction for all of a minute. It means, and they look forward to seeing. So let's not forget our elders, and
I want to jump off of that because Trey, you mentioned this earlier. I actually had a friend that told me the exact thing you were talking about earlier, which was instead of actively helping, putting yourself maybe physically there type of stuff, like they just wanted someone to listen. And I think at the time, when I was just younger and more active, it actually was meaningful to me because I'm like, I think sometimes you think the only way to help is to eliminate said problem. In a very logical way. So, this person has this issue, next so the only way to help this person is to make sure this issue is no longer. And sometimes, especially as you get older, these issues are either reoccurring, up and coming, they become more complicated, things like that. So something that I adopt now, this is what I meant by talking to people, is, and what you're saying also about like being there for people, is in a way just being there, being somewhat available, being and not even just for that person, but also for yourself, to always leave room for yourself to kind of be there for someone. And like I feel like sometimes that can be a lot because you can have a lot on your plate. Maybe you're like someone, it can be overwhelming. But I think that also allows you to take care of yourself a little bit better too. Whereas like if you can catch yourself feeling maybe overwhelmed in the week earlier, if you feel that you can't be there for someone else, kind of always leave room for one more person, be there in some type of like sometimes you only need to listen. Someone called me the other day. They're going through something, and it was almost my time to just I had work the next day. I was going to go to bed, but just that we were on the conversation for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. He just wanted to get something off his chest, just kind of express, and then you be there, and you're like, and it does help.
There's actually a beautiful trade-off in just listening to a person, because sometimes you forget that your circumstance is not going to line up with somebody else's. Right. So when you're trying to help someone with your solution, right, it may not be something that they can equate to because of their circumstance, right? So what I've found to be beneficial to me, it's like I'm not necessarily giving people solutions from my life, right? And I don't even have answers for anyone else's circumstance. I don't have all the answers to anything, right? But like I think it's just important because you can see the world from different lenses from hearing people out, right? And that might also offer you solutions for your own life and like tackling things in different ways, because like it may not have worked this way with like if you don't have a car, right? Getting to a location via bus might be better than taking an Uber, for example, right? And this is just so I'm not expressing like the myriad of different issues out there, right? But like in pursuing a job, in pursuing like new goals in life, and pursuing relationships, right? There are a lot of different people that dealt with a lot of different people who have dealt with a lot of different situations, all right? So like you don't know what rainbow mix you're going to get in hearing a person's issues out, all right? And I don't know, just being able to apply that vast wisdom in hearing those people, right, allow you to kind of like broaden your sense of maybe able to, help a person out later down the line.
And also, I just want to point this out. And there is a great help oftentimes in saying no. You know, because sometimes, you know, people feel like, and like, I'll give you an example. If I can share my story, my dad. So growing up, I would watch TV. TV was very, very big in my life, and you'd see these old family shows, and I grew up with families, watching them. And when it was time for the son to purchase a home, the father in the show would always like, well, let me help you out with the down payment, and you say, thank you, Pop, and so I just knew that was going to be my birthright. So when I was going to buy my first house, I was getting married. I'm telling my father. Now, mind you, got to listen to the words. I went to my father and I said, Dad, I'm about to purchase this house. I've got I need a little bit more for the down payment. And I was coming to you to see if you can help me out with the down payment for this because I'm almost complete all this. Now, I'm thinking my father was going to be proud. My boy in his first house. Yeah. So my father says, oh, okay, well, look into it. Mm-hmm. Now, what I'm asking and what he responded didn't seem to correlate. I was questioning my father's understanding of the English language at that point. So I'm saying, I said, no, Dad. What I'm saying is I have part of the down payment. I just need, to finish up if I can get assistance with that and I can get into the house. He goes, oh, okay, all right. Well, we'll look into it. Mm-hmm. And now I'm thinking he's just ignoring me, and I was like, now I'm getting mad because this is your turn. These are your lines. Say them, And once again, explain again. Look into it. So I got mad. I was not mad at him, but I felt indignant. Like so I slighted. That's right. I'm your son, the only boy. And so I went and I was like, okay, well I will. So I started dealing with different companies. And there was a company. Some people disagree, but it was a company called Acorn. And at the time they helped me out to help me get my look into my finances, whatever, stuff like that. And I did just that. I looked into it and I was going. And what happens? I end up getting a down payment for my own, and I kind of fling it to my father at this point. Like I did it like without you. I was like, yeah, I got it. I'm good. He goes, oh, well, you looked into it.
Right, fantastic.
And I was like, okay, so sometimes saying no and not just, because there are some people who are you can enable people by your help, and you don't want to do that either. There are some people that feel, some people are going to be watching this show now saying, you see, I told you, you're supposed to help me. No,
that's the balance, though. I think that's the reason why I also wanted to bring out the Seek Out to Reach Out thing, because it was so impactful for me for a very long time, especially with the superhero stuff and all that jazz, but I've also definitely put myself in positions where I've not necessarily I've taken a step too far, but I've been caught in positions where I think people are feeling enabled or just feeling like they could essentially use me. And for me, then it becomes a weird thing. You think you would stop there, but now you get caught in a situation where essentially I'm trying to prove to myself that like even in this, I'm trying to I now see the using as almost as a challenge. Like, all right, if you're gonna do this, now I can go even further and to the point where your task is so completed, So and I'm mentioning like that happened years ago, but I'm mentioning like there's a balance to how much you can help, and then that's why the reach out and seek out version of this, because it's not just helping, but it's like reach out and seek out is also just as important. It's like also seeking out, looking to who you're helping, what you're trying to help, the people you have around you, aligning yourself with people who have the same kind of mind and passion and purpose, and now that they can help you help other people. It's funny because one of the podcastings for different episodes I want to talk about is community. And I think community is a great way. And if you're not helping someone directly, an individual, someone do one thing that you're engaging your community just to be a part of, Because I always feel like helping is, or being a part of a community or giving to something is something that can sometimes help. In one of our last episodes, we talked about anxieties and stuff. Right. Sometimes just doing a little something that's outside of your normal day-to-day schedule, but helping can also give this version of restoration.
And also, I just thinking, we make your motivation pure. If you're helping out because you're hoping for some kind of quid pro quo, some return, that's not help. If you're saying like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Transactional.
Yeah, if it's transactional,
Don't be
and
expectant of
yeah,
something in return.
don't do it, and especially if you're going to do 1 inch and then you're expecting a mile back from
Right,
a person.
yeah.
You know, yo, remember the time I loaned you $1? That's why I want $50 from you today. Yeah, that's not how not how it works. You have to be, willing to do whatever you're going to do with recompense. If you and this is just me. People that and I'm not talking negatively about anybody, but those people that quote unquote borrow money and have no intention to pay it back.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to almost be prepared in your mind to say, I'm just making a donation or not do it.
Right. Right.
But if you are gonna, if you're going to loan somebody money that that's not, they don't have the resources or the inclination to pay you back, that's on you. And you should not be like, chasing up on them. Don't do it.
Right.
Just either don't do it, or when you do it, just recognize it's gone.
It's gone. Right.
And on the other side, if someone loans you money, and right now, there are people out there, and I'm talking about loan money, whether the car, what you did. In terms of yes, you
Yes,
did.
you
put the dent in the car.
You did it.
You did not. But they borrowed you. No, it wasn't a gift. You understood that. Just pay it back.
Right.
Do the right thing. That's all.
And don't say pay it forward to avoid paying the person.
Right.
No,
not
I paid it forward.
Right,
Again, it goes back down to the tipping a little bit too, like not just wait staff, but like if someone's offered you a ride, right? Like that little $10
Yeah, no way.
of gas money
On
would go a
audio.
long way in their future, right? Like I'm not saying that I expect it. I'm not saying that you should expect it when you're offering a person a ride. But like if you are given a ride, if someone has given you a ride, right? Just put it in your mind that they've gone out of their way to help
Right.
you out.
That's right.
So like, what do you do in return for them? All right.
Right. Yeah.
And that's about it.
Yeah, everything costs. Now I'm gonna say this to people who are listening. Everything has value. So I'm gonna say this to churches. I'm gonna say that to friends. If a musician comes in and plays for you, plays for you, or think of him. Maybe we should. I'm going to advocate for every church musician to stop calling themselves musicians, but call themselves plumbers. Because the church, when they call a plumber in, there's
False
never a problem.
Right.
So if you're paying them. So in other words, I'm going to say no longer are you church musicians. All of you are plumbers, and you're just making noise on your various tools of plumbing. Because the thing is, if someone is doing you a service, and this is a service unto the Lord, and this is true, but it should not be incumbent upon the musicians to feel like, well, they're not going to pay me or something like that. And that's not fair. That's not fair.
Right.
If they're giving service, and I'm not saying, on the other side of the coin, if you go to a small church and they don't have the resources to pay what you're worth, then be happy with what you got. Transparent. Yes, be transparent. Yeah, right, and make those things up front. Yeah, those kind of things. But and everything. But not just church music, but everybody has value. I believe you pay pay people for what they've done.
Pay artists.
We got 2 minutes,
artists.
guys. All right.
Pay artists, I think, is a good way to do it, because I think a lot of times with any type of transactional thing, and I feel like it happens a lot in the artist community. So musicians, illustrators, graphic designers is always like a thing. Well, because I feel like people don't have a lot of respect to things that are a creative talent sometimes,
Right.
because they think it's like, oh, this person likes doing this thing, so it's their pleasure. Like sometimes people have that assumption, or the case is. But I think a lot of times artists will get unfortunately screwed over in some form or fashion, because, and then also someone will get back to you. But yeah, pay artists. If someone, and this is the last thing because we only have 2 minutes. If someone does do something for you, you don't 1 minute. If something does do something for you, I think the empathetic thing to do is to take that with a certain level of grace and like lean on it. And you don't always have to pay back equally, but always think of that and understand that someone went out of their way to help. And if you think of that, that is the pay it forward thing. If it's not to that person, just kind of walk with that.
All right, and we're going to close up, and we thank you for listening. We're saying, we'll be gracious and say thank you for watching Various Fields. Seek out to reach out, find your way of doing it.
Pay
As
artists.
small, as small as it may seem to be to you, it's nudging the society forward by you being kind. I love you guys.
I love you too.
You know, and
Expand
we
that
thank
web.
you. Yeah. Thank you. Seek out to reach out, everybody.